Hey everyone. Hey everyone. Welcome to another episode of Darshan Talks. I'm your host, Darshan Kulkarni. It's my mission to help you trust the products you depend on. So I'm really excited for you to be here. As you may know, I'm an attorney, I'm a pharmacist, and I help companies who work with FDA products and advise on them. So if you are into medical devices, if you are fascinated by drugs, or you ponder over pharmacy, this is the podcast for you. Do have to emphasize I'm a lawyer, so not legal advice. And since our guest today is a PR guru, not PR advice either. However, I like to believe that this is educational. Hopefully you learn something new, and I know I will. I do these podcasts because they're a lot of fun. I get to learn from experts like our guest today. So if you like what you hear, please like, subscribe. If you think that someone else might hear this and be interested, please share. You can find me on Twitter at Darshan Talks, or go to our website, darshantalks.com. Our podcast today is about public relations, what we all get wrong. And today's actually a really good one because it's sort of I kind of want to get into the rebranding issue, and our guest is in the middle of one and is sort of at the tail end of one. So she can tell us a little bit more about what that looks like. So if you are in medical affairs, if you are in promotions, if you are in clinical trials and you're going, how do I stand out? Today's the conversation. We're going to find out a little bit more about that. Our guest today is the SVP for Communications. Is that right? And PR, go ahead. What's the right title?
So my title's a long one, Senior VP, Public Relations and Corporate Communications for CMI Media Group and Compass.
Thank you.
Yes.
And you can find her, luckily enough, at CMI Media Group or on LinkedIn at Carly Kuper. And our guest for today, Carly Kuper. Hey, Carly.
Hi. How are you?
Good to have you on. I'm really excited. So how have you been? How has the last couple of weeks been for you?
Been busy.
Yeah.
Very busy. Yeah. Always good, always busy. An old colleague of mine said that you always have to answer that question with busy, or else it looks like you're not doing anything.
See, I strongly disagree. I believe in the time of Simone Biles. You kind of go with I took a mental day.
That was huge. Can we just talk about that for the entire podcast? Because that was like a major game changer, no pun intended, but wow. I mean, we went from a world where it was all about winning all the time and do anything to win, to, you know what? It's a quality of life. And that's a sea change. It really is.
But let's ask that question. If as a company, and you're what is the PR value of saying we don't want to win, we want our employees to be happy?
Oh, I think that's huge.
Is it?
I think so, and I'm proud to say we're the sort of company that I think we got there several years ago, and we're I feel like maybe other people are maybe catching up right now, and I love that that's the direction that we're going in. But I think a lot of service industry, like agencies who have clients, anyone who has clients, it's really important to show that the clients are number one. And of course they are. And of course we're in service to our clients. But one thing that we've really seen that our clients want is they do want our people to be happy. They know that employee satisfaction does lead to the bottom line. I mean, if you look at our pharma and other healthcare industry companies, they are all consistently voted best places to work, having the best benefits. They see the value of it. And I think that the agencies are coming around too. So, especially in today's age where we're all kind of fighting for talent, there's more demand for talent than supply. We really do need to be able to show how important it is that, we prioritize things like work-life balance and really great benefits and, work satisfaction, training, development. All of these things are incredibly important, and add to it, being able to take time for yourself, be mindful. All of those things are are important. And I think most leadership at most companies recognize that. It's just kind of hard to figure out how to deliver that. How to say to every single person at the company, no, we really mean it. we really mean it. No. Turn off your laptop at the end of the day. Go have a life. Or if we offer flex time, take the flex time. That can be kind of hard to share. I have a 6-year-old who came home from camp, the day of the Simone Biles news, and they had actually been talking about it. These little ones had been talking about it at camp. And she said, I heard that she messed up, and so she couldn't be in the Olympics anymore. And I said, that's not what happened, honey. What happened was that she realized that, winning is not everything, that yes, she had worked really hard, and she wanted to be able to do this, and it was important to her. But what was more important was that she was happy and that she was healthy. And so this is the kind of thing that our kids are growing up with, and that, that millennials are already new, and that the rest of us who are not quite millennials need to be learning from. So I think, there is, if you need to tie that to bottom line, there is a bottom line benefit to it. There is a business benefit to happy people. I mean, look at, Zappos and other companies that extol those virtues. There, you can actually be really successful. And we have been really successful in trying to put our people first. So, I mean, we put our clients first, we put our suppliers first, we put our people first. Everybody's tied for first, and it's a good thing.
So let's ask that question a little bit. I mean, I actually agree with you, because one of my favorite things is I love superhero movies. And when I watch superhero movies, one of the things that always pops up is you want to watch those interviews, and you never see the people in the interviews going, I hated working with that guy or with that woman. It's always just, it's such a happy camp. This is a family. And you're right. No one wants to see someone being forced to do something they didn't want to do. So what I hear you saying is they're just a public face of what we're doing internally. So I think that's sort of interesting and valuable. What I'm also hearing from you is this idea that we're having a shift towards more of a European quality of life type model, where we're saying, yes, it's great that you are working hard. We need that. We want that. We want you to play your best. But we want you to work hard, but we also want you to play hard. And as part of that, we will enable that. Do you see a future where we become like Europe? And I don't know how much interaction you have with Europe. I'm going to guess a lot. But to the extent you do, do you find yourself seeing that, the European model of July, we're out. We're not coming back till August. Reach out to us in the middle of August.
Right.
What do you see?
I mean, it's there's no one who would say like, no, I wouldn't love a month off, like, right? Yeah. I think the shift is kind of more about like a shift in priorities, because like I have personally had the experience where I have shifted priorities, where I may work as many hours as I was working before, but I'm more productive and I'm happier. So I think that's what it's really about. I think it may be too ingrained for us to work, really long hours, or in a certain way. Like it's a capitalist society, right? So like we are who we are. It's really, really hard to change those habits for whatever generation you're in or whatever your working style is. It's hard to change your habits, but that kind of shift of like changing your priorities. So I don't really think we're going to see where everyone just says like, forget business isn't important. Let's all take a really long vacation. I don't really think that that's going to be it. I think it's more of like a soul searching of what's really important. I think that we've already seen that with like a lot of entrepreneurial spirit, so many startups. I mean, the startup thing has gone back many, many years, But I think we're seeing it more where the startups are not just bringing things that people need, which is kind of how it was like 20 years ago, as the internet was becoming ubiquitous. Google was launching, like all of those things had the huge tech boom, right? And people are like, how can we use technology to give things we people need? Now it's how can we completely disrupt things to give people what they need? And a really good example is is healthcare and many aspects of healthcare, because younger people, like I'm not going to give my age, but people in their 20s don't hold stigmas as hard as older people do. So like a stigma about menstruation is kind of totally out the door. People are freely discussing this, and that leads to a lot of innovation because it's open discussion. And so the innovation follows a lot of that in other areas of women's health. And I think that as a result, we then see like a complete disruption of that industry. So we saw a disruption of like the mattress companies, because suddenly there was all this mattress in a box, and that was unheard of before, but it was great. And it totally drove down prices and did all the things. We saw that with, disruption of eye care, or, first eyeglasses with Warby Parker. And now we're seeing that with eye care with a lot of telehealth offerings. And I think that's what the change is really going to look like. I don't think people are going to be working less or anything like that. But I think it'll be more passion driven and more prioritized. And I like to think people will be like, have a lot more opportunities and a lot more equality and diversity kind of all coming with that, because we're going to hopefully just shed the like long held habits that we've had.
You made an interesting comment there with the idea of equality, which is, and we can go into a whole DEI discussion, but yeah. I'm stopping myself from going down that direction for the second. But equality, are you suggesting that what we currently have in terms of top-down models and leadership and sort of middle management and then the operators, that's going to flatten, or are you saying something different?
I just think that, I guess, and this may be very much my personal experience, but I've always had kind of this like very hierarchical way of working. Like, my boss is my boss, and I don't question my boss, and I learn from my boss, and my mentor is going to be someone who's older than me and has, many more decades of experience, right? Like, I graduated in the 2000s and from college, and that's like kind of how I was raised into the world. But I think that people who are graduating college now, or even within the last 10 years, see a lot more value from people who have any kind of experience. So any life experience. You don't have to necessarily have gone to college or have worked in the field for 20 years. We're seeing people who gain life experience in a lot of different ways. I think that with the talent being in higher demand, you don't necessarily have to go into college to enter the industry of your dreams, which is a great equalizer. So I think it's just sort of, and I'm not saying that people who have many years of experience and who have done, all of the steps in the traditional way don't have value. I think there's a lot of value there. I hope there's a lot of value there. I've been working a long time, and I value my experience. And my husband's a college professor, so I hope people still keep going to college. But I think that there's just this like higher value in diversity of experience that we can all benefit from. And I think that because we have technologies like, social media, where anyone can share anything and anyone can be in that spotlight, I think that gives us more access to more experiences and more information.
So I'm almost hesitant to do this because I don't know if we can do enough justice to the topic, but I'm going to try anyways. So we talked a little bit about how Simone Biles represents a change in how people view their jobs, people view their success. We also talked a little bit about how that's reflected and is reflective of what the next generation is expecting. When you are trying to sort of rebrand a company that's been around for 20, 30 something years, how do you decide, first of all, if it's time? And B, in a time like now where change is almost on a yearly basis, you're seeing something completely new coming around. How do you know that you've hit the right mark in terms of rebranding?
You're so good. You I went off on a tangent all the way over here and you brought us right back to the topic today. So that was, this is why you're good at what you do. In terms of like, how do you know it's time? I could say that for us, so we just underwent a massive rebranding for both of our companies. It was over a year of work. And I think that I want to, for the record, I was not lead on the project. I would love to take the credit for the wonderful work, but my colleague, Amanda Prito, was lead on it. She did a spectacular job. I think that the way that we know it was time is because we have growth goals and future goals that we know we need to be able to step into, this new branding, because it's not just about the look, but it's also about who we want to be, who we are, staying true to ourselves, but also kind of what we want to grow into. It's very aspirational. And how do we know that it worked? I would say it's so new that technically we don't yet. But I feel pretty confident because we are at heart a data loving company, and we are all about measuring. This is what we tell our clients that they should be doing. We do it ourselves, and we measure every step of the way. And that looked like a lot of different things. We actually talked about this a lot last time. Always, focus groups and surveying and, real data where you're measuring with numbers and beep, bop, boop, beep, like really, the real data analytics stuff. And we did that every step of the way. We did work with an agency. Sometimes it is really smart to take a step back and have someone from the outside help you out. We worked with Finch Brands. They did a great job on both of them. And I think it really, we're getting very, very good feedback. We're getting great feedback from our clients, from our own people, from the supplier partners that we work with. And so that has been, I think, the most meaningful. We also, I think, we know that it works because it's allowing us, we set very clear goals for what we were trying to do with these rebrands, and they were discrete goals. We had one for CMI Media Group, one for Compass, or one set, I should say. And we can already see that this, the new look and the new positioning is letting us do what we wanted to do.
So you talk about the process and developing goals, but let's start from the beginning, because I think I'm still struggling with this myself, and I'll tell you why I'm asking this question. I think about Coke, and Coke's been rebranded multiple times. All I see is a different logo. To me, Coke hasn't changed in 120 years or whatever, however old it is, but they've had multiple rebrands. What should have happened in my head? Should they show up in my head as a more modern company each time? Like, what is a rebranding? What, outside a logo, what has actually changed, and what should it reflect? What is the goal of a rebrand?
Well, I mean, Coke is a good example, because if you're not remembering when they launched New Coke, then they've done a good job of erasing that from your memory, because that was not so successful, right? I mean, I think, I don't know what Coke's goals are other than, keep selling Coke to you.
Right.
I do know also that, they've diversified into different beverages as people want to become healthier. They're doing a lot with water. People are drinking a lot of bottled water. So that was probably really smart and probably part of their overall positioning and really good, because I don't know, but I'm imagining that global sales of soda are down as people are recognizing, that it's just not healthy for you. They had that whole debacle with the, I think soccer player. I'm not a big sports person. I think it was a soccer player who pushed aside a bottle of Coke at a conference, and their sales like plummeted, or their stock plummeted. No, but I think, Coke, they're brilliant marketers over there. And I think keeping for you as a consumer, I mean, do you drink Coke? Like, are you in their like customer base?
I'm a Pepsi drinker, unfortunately.
Okay. So like maybe Coke does nothing for you, right? Like,
but should they? Is that what the goal of a PR campaign or a rebranding campaign is? Is it to get new customers, or is it solidifying existing customers, or is it both, depending on what's marketing, what's PR? I guess that's where I'm kind of asking that question.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think it's both.
Okay.
So I think that now what's different now. That's a big question. So I guess I'll start with the what's marketing versus what's PR.
Sure.
You want to start there?
Let's start there.
Yeah, marketing would, like, we like to say it's like paid versus earned. So like marketing, advertising falls under marketing. It would be like all of the paid ad placements, but it would also be things like, what is the product? What does the packaging look like? And what are the colors that we're using? And diving into the audiences that we want to be targeting. And then PR.
But now you do all the stuff you just described, the colors, the positioning, that's the logo and the rebranding. Wouldn't that fall under marketing then? Or is that your point?
Yeah, definitely.
Interesting. Yeah. I would have thought of rebranding as a PR thing. And what you're saying is no, rebranding, obviously there's impact, but it's primarily a marketing exercise.
Yes. And it's both, because PR, we partner and there's like, what are people going to be saying about it? I mean, PR is kind of like, to put it like really simply, is to amplify what we want to announce once it's done. So my role in this rebranding, yes, I had some part of the rebranding process, but mainly was like, now that we have done it, like, let's get it out there and let people know. So that's a very, 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 very simplified answer to a very big question.
So let's get a little bit deeper. So how does one amplify a message? Obviously, the typical tools would be something like put it out on your Twitter and your social media feeds, on your send out a press release. But that's almost, in my head, just throwing shit at the walls, hoping it sticks.
Right.
And I expect that someone like you is going, yeah, that's like 101. You're playing at the 901 level. So tell me what is a 901 that you may be using the same tools but doing them differently. How do you do it differently in general?
So, I guess you'd start with your audience and your goals. So who are you trying to reach, and what are you hoping happens as a result? Okay. And, for us, most important was that the audiences that are important to us, there are many. It's our own people, it's our clients, it's our supplier partners, it's also potential recruits. It's a really, really important audience for us. We're hiring. And so it's important that there's awareness, and it's important that, people know who we are and who we could be to them. A big part for us is that we started as and are known as, media buying and planning, generally in the HCP audience sector. But we are much more than that. We do amazing work in consumer. We do data analytics, programmatic, buying and planning, search, social. I mean, we have so many offerings, award-winning offerings that we wanted to make sure that people knew of, because we want our clients to be using us for all of the things that we can help them with. And that's not only totally self-serving. Like, for example, we know that our clients' campaigns could be richer if they that their planning campaigns, their media planning could be richer if they also integrated search and social. And we offer search and social. And the reason we offer search and social is because we know it makes campaigns better. But not all of our clients are using us or using anyone for all of those things. And so it's important for us to be able to communicate those things to them, because they'll simply have better results. And so there's just like a lot of different ways that we would do that. Yes, everything you mentioned, doing a press release, putting it on our social, but doing things like really helping our staff get a great understanding of what that messaging is and why it is helps quite a bit. Because if our goal is to make sure that clients are getting the best of us, which is basically what the goal is, then it really helps to have every one of our employees talking about that. We have over 700 employees, and most of them are talking to clients all day. So I can send out 50 press releases, but what may be more effective is 5 of our people happening to mention it on a client call, right?
Right.
So you never know what is going to actually hit the mark. There's like an old sales adage that you have to contact someone 4 times before they make any sort of, action. And, so that's like, we talk to this about our clients too. It's omni-channel. Like you have to really diversify your efforts. So we try to do it in a lot of different ways. We have a big thought leadership push where our people write POVs, fantastic POVs on very important topics that are important to our clients. And the reason we do that is because we are showing them we can guide you on the things that are important to your business. And that has also been like a really helpful tactic in them, being able to see what we can do for them. And so, it's just like there's a million different ways that you can, this is why my marketing partners and I will hopefully always be in business, because it's not easy, and there's no one right answer, but there's a lot of different options that you can try.
So I'm already, like, as usual, we're well past our time, but I'm gonna ask one question before we sort of move topics. And to me, 2 questions, but let's start with the first one. The first question I have is, you said that the goal of PR is to be visible so that people see and notice the kind of good work you do. So the part that's surprising to me is, when I was a pharmacist a few years ago, I'd never heard of CMI Media Group, because the truth is, as a pharmacist, I was working in healthcare. I thought I'm above hearing from pharma and all that good stuff. I started working pharma more and more. And again, I've always worked in pharma, ignoring that part of it. But the more I switched over on the sides and the perspective, CMI Media Group became a much bigger piece. So I guess my question is, who is your audience? Is it supposed to be HCPs, or is it supposed to be buyers who you can start changing the message? You're supposed to be invisible and to the HCPs, because that you aren't supposed to be the star.
Right. I love that question, because like you hit the nail on the head. You would not have been our audience.
Right.
And if you were getting marketing and PR messages from us, we would have been wasting valuable communication.
Okay.
So, it is really important that you do identify your audience and that you're communicating to the right audience. And that's important no matter what your business is. So our audiences really are healthcare companies who then want to be reaching healthcare providers and including pharmacists and consumers, consumers, patients, because we help them to reach them. So the ideal situation is where those doctors and nurses and everyone and those patients, they know our clients, not us.
And last one is more of a comment now that I think about it than a question. But I'm sort of going through a PR exercise myself, trying to figure out how to position myself, and several questions going through my head about how do I do it right. One of the key things that really jumped out at me, the things that I realized, and you'd think this would be obvious, but it's not to me, and now it is glaringly obvious. Start with a goal. One of the things I do is I do a lot of things. I'm on social media all the time. I'm engaging people, and I'm doing it hoping that if I do enough things, people will notice me.
Right.
And what you're saying is, no. People will notice you. You first need to have a goal. Once you decide what that goal is, then work backwards to figure out how people should notice you. Otherwise, you're just everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, the goal thing, if it makes you feel better, and I hope it does, I don't want you to stress. It's definitely like a very big mistake that people make commonly, is not focusing on the goal and focusing on the tactics. Like, if I do this, it'll definitely work. If I do that, it'll definitely work. But if you don't know what your goal is, it'd be like, driving somewhere without actually knowing where you're going. Yes, you're driving and you're successfully driving. You're not running into trees or anything, but like, are you supposed to be going to New Jersey, but you're on your way to Florida? Like that's like a pretty important thing.
But let's use that analogy though. My audience is in Florida, New Jersey, and wherever else. Like I have an international audience. So if I kind of just sit in a car and start driving loud enough and shout loud enough, my thought process is someone's bound to hear me. Someone's bound to hire me. So why does that not work? Why?
It'll work, but it's going to take a lot of energy, right? You know what would really work for you, Darshan? Take out a Super Bowl ad. You'll reach everyone. Wow. We'll spend millions of dollars.
Right.
But you sure will reach everyone. I mean, that's how, advertising used to work. You would throw it out there. It's the Wanamaker quote, like, half of my advertising isn't working, but I don't know which half. Like, that's actually really not the case anymore. Right. We are able to measure to such a precise degree that as long as you know who your audience is and identifying your goals and your audience, it's really, really important, then you can target that audience much better. And it is definitely important to identify who you want to reach. I mean, like you definitely are so good. You are so good at really getting the word out. And I think that probably has given you a lot of success. Now it's time to like tailor and target and like dial it down,
Dial it down. Yeah. I've heard that more than a few times.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Don't dial down your energy though. Your energy is good.
Oh, you're kind.
But it will take too many resources to do that. Like getting more tailored is probably going to help you quite a bit.
Well, on that note, and we should have you back to talk about what that looks like in the future, and maybe we'll have conversations as well. But on that note, a couple of different questions for you.
Okay.
Based on what we discussed, what would you like to ask the audience?
I would like to ask the audience for examples of really great communication, PR or advertising, that really resonated with you.
I'll give you the answer to that one right now. Okay. At least my answer to that question. I recently discovered, and this is a funny thing to say, discovered, but I recently discovered that Dunkin' got rid of the word donuts. It's now just Dunkin'.
Interesting.
Because they're more than donuts.
Yes.
and when we were talking about Coke and you mentioned that they have all these other products, it's like, who else did that? And to me,
Dunkin'.
People say that that's a terrible idea. And the reason it sort of stuck out at me is because I was listening to a Bill Burr rant, if you will, on Dunkin' Donuts. He's like, why get rid of the donuts? And I'm kind of going, because they're more than donuts. But that to me was rebranding done right, maybe? I mean, it's
Yeah.
enough to get free publicity from Bill Burr, so there's that.
They've been doing a great job. Have you heard about their whole Charlie D'Amelio campaign? Okay,
No.
so if anyone watching this has a teenager or a preteen like I do, you've definitely heard of it. I think that increased their sales in one day by 40%, having this one TikTok influencer get to choose her own drink, and they named the drink after her. And I will tell you that I was forced to drive to Dunkin' Donuts that day and purchase the Charlie or whatever it was called. And then I had to drink it because my preteen does not drink coffee, right? So like she was so excited about this. But it really worked. They knew their audience, not just that the teens would go there, but that the preteens would nag their parents to take them there. And we didn't just buy the Charlie either. We bought the donuts. We bought a few snacks. It was really smart. Dunkies, as I've always called it, that they've been killing it lately for sure.
At one point, we should do a teardown on some brands, not because they need the teardown, but because to understand what they're thinking. The one I'm particularly interested in is what is their thought process around McDonald's? And we obviously don't know because I don't know they're a client of yours. Hopefully they aren't.
We just do healthcare. I don't know if
So,
WPP might represent McDonald's. I'm not sure, but
right. Fair enough.
But we'll be kind. Only kind words.
Only kind words. No, but I always try to understand what might have been the goal based on what we're receiving, and I think that's always an interesting.
I love that topic. I love to talk about that. I can talk about that.
Have that conversation. So another question for you. What is something you've learned in the last month that you think the audience might find interesting?
So I had an aha moment recently, and it's kind of tied to what we were talking about. So when it comes to audiences and knowing your audience, so lately you may have noticed that most brands have some sort of stake in a cause or something, right? Like or taking position, and that's really increased a lot.
Yeah.
And that has often caused people who don't feel the same way to boycott, and people who do feel the same way to go and patronize the company or whatever. So, my aha moment about that was just that because it's always a hard thing to do. Convention says don't talk about politics, you know. Yeah. But because today's best brands have a really good understanding of who their audiences are and what their audience's preferences are, it's not as much of a risk anymore. It's still a risk, but it's often a risk worth taking because they can often not just know what their audiences would like, but also, maybe more importantly, how to apologize when they miss the mark, because you're still going to miss the mark.
Yeah.
Right? Like it doesn't matter how well you know your audience. Like I have been with my husband for almost 20 years and he and I know each other better than anybody. Like he knows me better than anybody knows me, but he still has to apologize to me frequently for different things, right? He still misses the mark plenty. But he knows how to apologize because that's part of it. So I think the aha moment for me was just that this is a big deal in branding. And I think overall a positive one.
It's such an interesting question. And maybe we should get into that at some point as well. I mean, there are just so many topics we can get into it. The one question I have here would always be, is it different in healthcare? Because let's say a celebrity says something bad, or the company says something bad and the patient doesn't like it. In the case of healthcare, it's not the patient who chooses the product. It's the prescriber. So does that patient's feeling necessarily influence whether or not they take the product? Or conversely, does that influence whether the prescriber, for better or for worse, chooses a different product, even though it's right for the patient. And there are guidelines and stuff in place. So I wonder if it's more or less of an issue in healthcare and in pharma, even though people are people.
Yeah.
So
that's it. I have a lot of thoughts on that. Should we get into it, or do you want to table that for another time?
I think we got to table that. We're already well past where we should be. Another question is, what made you happy last week?
Okay. I knew you were going to ask that. And the only thing I can think of is I've been getting letters from my daughter from sleepaway camp. And every letter makes me very happy. But I think to put it back in the workplace, we've been returning safely to the office as preferred. So we're doing a beta test. No one is required to return to the office. We are beta testing, like listening to our staff and hearing, what people like and what people don't like, what works for them, just to, with a focus on happiness and productivity. And so I did get to see some of my colleagues. I chose to go into the office one day. I tend to be very, very cautious from a health perspective. So, I was cool with it because we've taken a lot of safety precautions at work. And I got to see some people in person, and it was really great seeing people.
How Simone Biles of you to look at it from a health and safety perspective. But I feel like that's going to become a verb or an adjective or whatever that is at some point. But kudos to you. Last question is really, how can people reach you? But I think we've been sort of flashing that throughout.
Yeah.
But say it aloud for the people who might just be listening to it on audio.
Sure. So on Twitter, CMI Media Group, and on LinkedIn, I told Darshan I am the only Carly Kuper, but you have to spell it right. It's CarlyKuper, like super with a K.
There you go. And this was so much fun. Thank you so much again for coming on, Carly. I am excited to have you on again. And everyone, feel free to reach out to Carly. She is the guruess, or guru. I feel like it's a gender neutral term, but she's the guru of PR. And I'm super happy to have talked to you. We'll talk soon again, Carly. Thank you.
Thank you so much.